went to the insectarium, every insectarium.
Oh, what fun. Oh my God, what fun. Good morning, everybody. It is St. Patrick's Day, Tuesday, March 17th. And we have paraded into our committee instead of down Fifth Avenue. Here we are. We're in our committee, and first we are addressing amendments to the cannabis bill. And then we're going to talk about our priorities for spending in our economic development and housing bills, and talk about actually the priorities of all our bills. And we're going to have lunch. So we're going to make it through all that. So Tucker, we're going to begin with Tucker. I think the one amendment that we have actually is something that I have discussed with this committee, which is one of the things I think we have to do is position ourselves for the possible federal descheduling of cannabis. And so to take advantage, I think we need to be better prepared than we are at the moment. And we have talked about creating a regional compact that could work together to both protect our craft cannabis industry, but just to protect the whole industry before big cannabis comes swooping in. So that is in part what's to tee up this amendment. That is what the objective is of this amendment, is to prepare us and to have the CCB do the work of preparing us to get to possibly scheduling. And so I asked Tucker if he'd be kind enough to take a stab at this. And this is, Tucker very graciously did this. It's just the beginning of what may be our amendment. So we're just starting. So Tucker, would you be kind enough to explain how you crafted it and why?
Sure, I can definitely do that now. Good morning, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Council. So what you have in front of you is an individual amendment from Senator Clarkson. You should be looking at draft 1.1, which is dated yesterday at 7:08 p.m. Senator Clarkson's amendment proposes to add a new section 27A to the bill, establishing the Cannabis Compact Authority. Big picture, what this does is it allows the governor to enter into agreements with other states that have the same or substantially similar regulatory model as Vermont, to allow for licensees from that other contracting state to conduct business within Vermont. And the agreement, of course, would go both ways, allowing Vermont licensees to conduct business in the other party state. There are contingencies set in place that I'll get to later on in the amendment before any of these agreements can be effective. One of four things has to happen at the federal level, and we'll think of them largely as either regulatory changes at the federal level or an update to memoranda relating to enforcement by the Department of Justice related to cannabis. There's authority in here for the Cannabis Control Board to both participate in the formation of the agreement with the other states and also to adopt emergency rules governing the admission of foreign licensees within the state. And at that point, I'll note something right up front since we're about to jump into definitions. This language, almost exactly down to the very words on the page, has been adopted for other states. The language is nearly identical with a few state-specific exceptions. And the term foreign licensee, before it causes any alarm, just means any licensee outside of the state of Vermont. It is a very common term, foreign versus domestic, and it is the exact term that we use in corporate law to describe corporations based in the state as domestic corporations and those based out of the state as foreign corporations. It is not an indicator of national status, just Vermont or not Vermont. So first, in subsection A, definitions that'll be used throughout the section. Agreement means an agreement relating to commercial cannabis established pursuant to this section. Contracting state means any state of the U.S., including districts, commonwealths, territories, or possessions. that the governor has entered into an agreement pursuant to this section to allow for commercial cannabis activity. And subdivision 3, foreign licensee, holder of a cannabis license issued by another state. Vermont license, a cannabis license issued by the Cannabis Control Board. And throughout the section, whenever you see a word capitalized, that means the Cannabis Control Board. Subsection B, we have the authorization. The governor is authorized to enter into agreement with another state or states authorizing medical or commercial cannabis activity between entities licensed under the laws of the contracting state and entities operating with a Vermont license. I'll also note up front that this came together rather quickly, and I need to make sure that Vermont license is used to perform through post. There are a few instances that I have to correct.
No, I just want to say upfront, how grateful I am to you for doing this in the wake of crossover week and the huge amount of work you had. So thank you for fitting this in. And we luckily have Gabe, who just arrived in the nick of time, so that we have his input too, which is very helpful. Thank you.
We have some provisos related to this authority. First, commercial cannabis activities must be lawful and subject to licensure under the laws of the contracting state. And with respect to interstate transportation, the agreement has to prohibit the following. First, in subdivision A of line 7, the transportation of cannabis by any means other than those authorized under the laws of the contracting state and the regulations of the board. And the transportation of cannabis and cannabis products through the jurisdiction of a state, district, Commonwealth, territory, or possession of the United States that does not authorize that transportation. That's subdivision B, may be familiar because that's on line 10. That's like intermediate routing. If you remember during the sports wagering days, not allowed to route your wager through a state that doesn't authorize sports.
So forgive me, but are these transportation pieces beginning to get at some of the concerns around interstate commerce?
They get at the concern that a licensee, for example, from New Jersey, if it was a party state to an agreement, would transport cannabis to Vermont through a state where cannabis is prohibited.
Got it.
Subsection C, notwithstanding any other law, a foreign licensee may engage in commercial cannabis activity with a Vermont licensee, and a Vermont licensee may engage those activities with a foreign licensee, subject to the limitations set forth in this section. Subsection D, a foreign licensee shall not engage in commercial cannabis activity within the boundaries of the state without a Vermont license. So right there, the trigger, you have to get a CCB license before you can carry out any commercial cannabis activity within the state.
So, but here we might envision an interstate licensing agreement. And we'll come to that. All the agreements that might be in place. But I mean, just like we have interstate compacts for nurses or other people that have licenses in several states, are we envisioning that we might be able to have a regional license?
That is not envisioned here.
Okay.
The structure that is set up is that this is opening the door to allow, if there's an agreement in the future, contingent on a lot happening at the federal level, that you could have out-of-state businesses to business state of Vermont.
Right. Okay. So
provided that they get a license from the Cannabis Control Board.
Okay, got it.
We're on page 3 in subsection E. An agreement shall require that the contracting state impose requirements on foreign licensees with regard to cannabis and cannabis products to be sold or otherwise transferred or distributed within Vermont that meet or exceed the requirements applicable to Vermont licensees. We have the not limited to structure here. Subdivision 1, enforceable public health and safety standards that are equivalent to those that are adopted by the board. Mandatory participation in a system administered by this state to regulate and track cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, etc., from seed to sale. Subdivision 3 on line 10, standards for testing of cannabis that meet or exceed the standards applicable to testing laboratories licensed by the board. And 4 on line 12, requirements for packaging and labeling of cannabis and cannabis products that meet or exceed those adopted by the board. Subdivision 5, requirements for quality assurance and inspection of cannabis that meet or exceed those adopted by the board. And 6, restrictions on marketing, labeling, and advertising within the state by foreign licensees that meet or exceed the restrictions of Vermont licensees pursuant to this title. And finally, on page 4, subdivision 7, process for identification of adulterated or misbranded cannabis products, the destruction of those products using standards that meet or exceed the standards adopted by the board. So there's quite a bit of guidance that you've given the governor here on what the standards of a party state have to be before the agreement can be valid and effective. I have not done any sort of analysis on this yet, and it wouldn't be triggered until you got to the point you actually had an agreement in place. But one area of law that could be triggered by this would, depending on the Vermont cannabis statutes being applied to those licensees from a foreign jurisdiction, is what's known as the unconstitutional conditions doctrine, which states that if the state is going to open up its intrastate business to out-of-state actors and give privileges to parties who are out of the state, that Vermont cannot extract or remove constitutional guarantees from those out-of-state actors in exchange for giving them an in-state license. It's something to keep an eye on with some of the provisions that have been discussed, particularly around advertising. Now, again, not an issue currently, not an issue under the four corners of this draft, but certainly if you get to the point in the future where there is this building interstate commerce and you have these compact agreements come into place, it is something that the CCB, the governor's office, and eventually the legislature is going to have to consider, is whether you are requiring an unconstitutional condition for the issuance of a privilege.
I know it's a big deal, and I so appreciate you starting us on this because it seems like such a sensible thing that we could all create a regional compact, but it's complication. And I'm beginning to appreciate it how much so. But thank you.
All right, we're on line 4, page 4, subsection F. An agreement shall require that the contracting state impose restrictions upon advertising, marketing, labeling for sale within that state that meet or exceed the restrictions established pursuant to this title and the rules adopted by the board. Subsection G, the agreement shall provide for the collection of all taxes applicable to the medical or commercial cannabis activity.
Taxes, maybe, and fees, or just are there fees too, right?
The fees would come into play with the licenses issued by the board. So that is part and parcel of the requirement that the out-of-state actor acquire a license from the CC or treat out a commercial license.
Any questions so far?
We're on line 10 on page 4, subsection H. An agreement shall include provisions requiring the board and any other appropriate regulatory authorities of the contracting state to address public health and welfare emergencies concerning cannabis that are sold or intended for sale within the state, including for the prompt recall or embargo of adulterated or misbranded products. On line 15 in subsection I, an agreement shall include provisions requiring appropriate regulatory authorities of each state to investigate instances of alleged non-compliance upon the request by the other state in accordance with mutually agreed upon procedures. So you have a requirement for cooperative investigation and enforcement. An agreement shall include provisions requiring the contracting state to reasonably cooperate with the state's investigations concerning foreign licensees and requiring the board to reasonably cooperate with investigations by the contracting state concerning persons or entities holding state licenses. So we're in subsection J, 8.5, line 3. An agreement shall include appropriate provisions reflecting board programs and efforts to promote the inclusion and support of individuals and communities in the cannabis industry who are linked to populations and neighborhoods that were negatively or disproportionately impacted by cannabis criminalization. This is the first point in the structure that has more than just minor technical updates from what has been passed in the 4 other states, and that those updates are intended to reflect that the Cannabis Control Board has already taken steps to do this and has some of these programs in place, whereas the language in New Jersey stated that prior to the adoption of the agreement, these things had to be implemented in New Jersey and the contracting state. We already have this. Subsection K. Prior to the execution of an agreement or amendments to an agreement, the governor shall, so here are your requirements placed on the governor's contracting ability. First, submit the proposed agreement or amendments to the board and JFC for review and comment. The board and committee shall have 60 days to review the proposed agreement and to submit written recommendations to the governor. The governor shall consider the recommendations and may revise the proposed agreement to incorporate those recommendations. If the governor does not incorporate any of the recommendations from the Cannabis Control Board or from the Joint Fiscal Committee, the governor shall set forth in writing the reasons that those recommendations were not incorporated. Second, the governor is required to post the proposed agreement or amendment on the governor's and the Cannabis Control Board's websites of straight internet. New Jersey was very specific that these had to be internet websites
As opposed to those paper websites they have.
for public comment for 30 days. Maybe like one of those light brights. Something.
Yeah.
The governor shall consider any comments received.
So just so we understand, there's a flow chart here. CCB would do a lot of the initial thinking and rulemaking on this.
The governor would initiate the agreement process.
Right.
And
Yes, the governor initiates the agreement process. Good.
yes,
So maybe wait till we finish and then we could look, do a little flow chart and talk. Does that help? Would that help people?
we're on page 6.
Hey, it's Tuesday morning.
Then we're at subsection
Tuesday.
L right at the top.
Okay.
These are the triggers for an amendment, for an agreement to come into effect. So in subdivision 1, federal law is amended to allow for the interstate transfer of cannabis or cannabis products between authorized commercial cannabis businesses. So, and plainly, federal law changes on this. Second, federal law is enacted that specifically prohibits the expenditure of funds to prevent interstate transfer of cannabis between authorized businesses. So the law hasn't changed, but there's no money, or there's a prohibition on money being spent on enforcement activities around this. Subdivision 3, the Department of Justice issues an opinion or memorandum allowing or tolerating the interstate transfer of cannabis products between authorized businesses. So you've heard the chair of the CCB bring up the whole memorandum as an example from the past. If that memo were to be updated to allow for the interstate transfer between party states of cannabis without having the Department of Justice carry out enforcement activities, that would trigger the ability to enter into an agreement and have that agreement be effective.
And what's it called? The COLE?
COLE memorandum. And it right now, the language of that memo gets you very close, but it still does not speak to transporting cannabis between commercial party states. And I think specifically what currently the 4 states that have adopted this language is what Vermont would be looking for is some sort of assurance that the states who are party to an agreement like this are not going to be subject to enforcement around a criminal conspiracy to violate federal law. Subdivision 4, the Attorney General issues a written opinion that implementation of agreements entered under this section will not result in significant legal risk to this state based on review of federal judicial decisions and administrative action. So that subdivision 4 is the one area where a state level actor could have an impact on the ability for the governor to enter into an agreement that become effective. If the AG issues an opinion that says that it is safe to enter into these agreements, that could trigger one of these compacts. Subsection M, the board shall notify the governor and the General Assembly upon the occurrence of an event described in subsection L and shall post a notification on the board's website. So if any of those 4 changes happen that would allow for these agreements to take place, the Cannabis Control Board is going to publish a notice.
If any of these 4,
If any of these 4 happen, CCD is gonna post a notice saying, hey, this triggering event has happened. This potentially opens the opportunity for an agreement between the governor and another state that has commercial cannabis.
Okay.
Subsection N. Cannabis Control Board is given discretionary authority to adopt emergency rules pursuant to 3 VSA section 844 governing the procedures for admission of a foreign licensee to conduct commercial cannabis activities within the state. Notwithstanding subsection B of that section of the Administrative Procedures Act, the board's emergency rules shall be effective for 1 year. To explain why that's necessary, emergency rules by default are only effective for 180 days.
oh, right,
During that 180-day period, the agency that has adopted the emergency rules has the discretion to propose permanent rules and bring them before LPAR. This gives 1 year, and I'll explain why once we work through the subsection.
is that true for federal emergency rules as well?
I'm absolutely not aware of what the limitation on federal emergency rules is, but I can certainly look into that. Within 90 days after adopting the emergency rules, the board must report to this committee and House Government Operations and Military Affairs concerning its recommendations for necessary updates to Vermont's cannabis laws and the proposal for permanent rules governing commercial cannabis activities subject to an agreement. This subsection N is not in the compact language that was adopted by other states. It's put into place here to give the Cannabis Control Board immediate authority to react to one of the governor's agreements with another state and to adopt emergency rules governing essentially provisional licenses for out-of-state actors. Those emergency rules would be effective for 1 year, and that would give time for the board to report to the General Assembly and for the General Assembly to be able to make the decision about whether this is going to be a permanent program put into place and whether to amend any necessary permit within Title VII to accommodate the presence of foreign licensees within Vermont's cannabis market.
What happens if rules are not adopted within that period?
If they're not adopted at all, you would likely have these out-of-state actors applying to the Cannabis Control Board for licenses anyway. And I'm not sure if there would be any issues with the CCB administering that.
But what would happen to those people who are licensed, for example, in the meantime, would there be any impact on their licenses? The board just failed to.
Our current licensees would not be impacted. This would really only impact those out-of-state actors who are attempting to gain access.
So I'm saying an out-of-state actor who was able to gain access within that limited period. What would happen to their licenses? Would they simply stay in effect?
If they've already been issued by the Cannabis Control Board, then yes.
Okay, I know it's a lot, but, and it's good. Dave,
Just curious, OCAR deals maybe 10% of all the rules come through our emergency rules. I'm just wondering where the ICAR, LCAR process reinitiates in this process. If at all, or if this is always been a certain level.
At the time that the permanent rules are proposed by the agency, it goes through the full rulemaking process. Now, there have been instances in the past, particularly during emergency response periods, where agencies come back every 180 days to re-propose the emergency rules, and LCAR has, with some discretion, re-granted the emergency authority for those rules to stay in place.
Probably worth taking 30 seconds to explain why this initiative is being proposed now as opposed to waiting to January 2027.
Because there may be federal action for that.
And
And I think it behooves us to be better prepared than we are currently.
okay,
I was never a Girl Scout, but I believe it's the Girl Scout motto and Boy Scout motto, whatever, it's be prepared. I think it's both Boy Scouts and Girls,
now scouts.
now Scouts. So
Boys and girls.
I'm an eldest child, I feel that responsibility of being prepared.
No, I think it just, it needs to be expressed why.
I
why we're-
have asked Tucker to actually, if we could create an intent section to begin it.
There you go.
Because I think we do need an intent section, which says quite simply,
In preparation.
in the event that this happens, and just what there may be enough distractions for the White House to be a little busy right now, but having heard the inkling already out of his mouth that this might be coming down the pike, I think we need to be as prepared as possible. And then we can use this as a way to get CCB working on this and shape to propose more in Jan. Comments.
Not against this either, but along that same line of thinking, I get it that we want to be prepared for possible federal action. In your mind, or Tucker's mind, or your mind, if this didn't happen, what's that landscape look like? What are your biggest concerns that if we don't have the ball moving and the federal descheduling happens? Is it the transportation of marijuana across? What most motivates you and concerns with the federal action?
I think I might, because I'm actually, as you know, not a whiz on this, in this world. So I would turn to Gabe and to Tucker to describe what would happen if this happened tomorrow and we weren't prepared.
For the record, Dave Youngman from the Cannabis Control Board, General Counsel. It's really, this strikes us as an effort to position the state.
Tucker, are you departing?
No, appropriations.
Appropriation.
Good morning, and forgive me, I have to be down to all in just a minute, but Dave Youngman, General Counsel.
We're the most important place for you, right?
You're always, so you can keep me as long as you like. But what we have to say about this is pretty simple. It's really the defining characteristic of this market is nobody knows what's going to happen or how fast. And the general sense of the board is that it is good policy, big picture, to position the state as nimbly as possible to address whatever happens next, whatever that may be. I don't think this is an emergency in the sense that if you were asking me to bet on something going to happen in the next year that you need to respond to, I say probably that's not very likely. But we do have well-considered legislation here that's been tried and implemented in other states. It's carefully thought through. I look through and thought, usually see what's not going to work in Vermont. This is pretty well done. It's drafted in a smart way. It's ecumenical. It allows the individual states to retain a lot of control over their markets. It differs, and I know where your head is, Senator, because I've worked with you on the compact issues with licensing, and in those, there's a compact license, and the individuals don't get state licenses. This is different.
Yeah, this is different. That's why I asked if you saw it. So I asked.
Yes. And so there is the risk that Tucker was talking to you about, constitutional challenges to kind of, particularly around advertising, to kind of keep your model if you're making somebody else give up something that might be protected. But I think those are pretty obscure. So in general, the board, thinks this is a responsible measure to place the state on nimble footing. Probably we'll have 1 or 2 years to kick the tires, iron things out if we're making a mistake. That doesn't seem likely though, because the other states that are involved have given us a really careful thought, and we're basically just adopting that template. So really, a question of policy for you, whether, this is the year that you feel like you want to have that in position. It does not seem to us to have any risks. It does, it would not compel us to do anything that we think is our interest in the state.
You give us a notion of a flow chart of how this would work. Because that's what we were gonna ask Tucker, but yeah, I think you probably have a pretty good sense of that because it requires that's what it requires the CCB to actually begin this thinking about how we would do this.
My understanding is, and I don't want to give too much credit to a guy that read this for the first time at 9 this morning, but,
Yes, no, I know when you read, so
my understanding is that the CCB gives fairly prominent place to the CCB to make recommendations to the governor about the wisdom or not of joining whatever
Right.
agreements are. We're comfortable that,
but you are our CCB, and
Yes.
you are our experts in this area, and the governor would naturally turn to you anyway. I mean, just you're part of the administration and you're doing that work.
I think so, and I think we're comfortable that it gives prudent place to the board in making recommendations. It gives, a prudent time for public consideration before anything is done. And it really just unlocks possibilities that, candidly aren't likely to become reality in the coming year, but it does not harm us in any way that I can see to have those possibilities unlocked, if that makes any sense. Yes.
Randy,
Just a question, is the governor's office aware of this and have they put any input in?
I have no information about that. I'm afraid.
Yeah. This is brand new. We got to this. I just wanted to have a chance. We have a few days to discuss it, and this won't be on the floor until next week. So I am assuming that we have the time for Pepper to discuss this with Monica and with the governor's office.
I assume that's the case. And I should say that on my very fast read through, I don't see it compelling the governor to do something that's not.
Yeah, not asking, it's just helping us be better prepared for the moment. And I think he would, just knowing him as reasonably well, I would think that anybody would want to be prepared with the experts around him, ready, poised for action to protect something, to protect Vermont and Vermont interests and Vermont's interests.
No objections, fine, we'll move this forward. You need us to straw poll or whatnot.
Yeah, I'd love to have you all on it. To me, this would be a committee. Ideally, I don't need to ever be the sole person. I started it with Tucker.
Do you see anything in here that might have a effect on state revenues or expenditures for the coming budget year?
For the coming budget year, no. So unless anything would happen. Okay.
But it has profound effect. If it gets enacted, and that is one of the things we would want to actually, obviously, be working to protect is our craft cannabis industry.
Yes, and I should say one of the unusual characteristics of our market, which is very important to its operation, is the registration of products. And so if this enables us, were there a regional cannabis market, to register and require testing of the products as we do now for Vermont products, which is one burdensome, but also really important to public protection and protecting the integrity of the market, making sure people get what they think they're getting when they buy a product. But my understanding is that would remain in place, and also that there's a fee attached to that. And so it
would actually be more income for Vermont.
Yes,
More revenue.
under our current system, every individual out-of-state product brought in would be charged an annual $50 fee to be analyzed by our experts, to have its certificate,
Right.
its lab results analyzed and whatnot. So to the extent there's a budget effect or revenue effect, it's probably that we could take it on these.
Would those fees, they should cover the cost of the review, inspection, et cetera. You know that based on experience.
That's what fees are supposed to be.
We don't really know. I do think that, right now it's $50 per, and I don't believe the agency is bleeding money doing that. But I think it would require people with, more data and information to say whether or not we're.
The question is, right now, but I'm having measurement of this and measure.
Yes, I think that that's fairly easy to do. It's just something I can do from.
Right. It gives you time to actually think about those exact issues.
Yes, and I think the board would tend to agree that measuring, adjusting the registration fee to the actual cost of that government service and making it basically a user fee, makes sense. But that's the way that.
Just out of curiosity, where are we now in the state with licensing? There was a moratorium. Is moratorium still in effect? I just kind of lost track.
Right now, there was some concern in previous sessions about the overconcentration, oversaturation of retail, as well as the number of cultivation licenses. So the board paused acceptance of retail until it has a siting rule in place. And it paused issuance of cultivation licenses right now until it has a little bit of stability in terms of what's going on in the market. As we sit here today, one can still apply and receive a license as a manufacturer or wholesaler. It's just growing at a retail cost.
And this is response to both our glutted market and our our hyper clustered set of retail establishments.
Yes, and that is kind of straightening us up out of time. One of the things you did in the bill was that, offering localities a little more control, being some they feel more comfortable being for student to reach out. That just.
Thank you. That is very helpful. And the flow chart sort of idea of where this would start. I mean, it starts obviously with this proposal and then we'll have some time in the House to flesh this out, maybe a little bit more. But I think I just wanted to get it in here because I think we've talked about it enough to have this as a concern. Because you never quite honestly know with this administration when this might happen. And it's already been discussed once or twice, so that I wouldn't have felt compelled to actually try and urge us into a point to be better prepared unless I heard it now a second time. So I just think, who knows what will happen, but when it happens, I want us to be ready. So what kind of would, other than legislation that sort of kicks this into action, then CC, can you just sort of do a flow chart for us up until the trigger, the whole thing?
With the caveat that I very
Brand new to this.
expertise.
I know, I appreciate your.
My understanding is that various states, you would be, I guess, the fifth to implement it.
Yes,
Would then have to say, what's this agreement going to be? And then how is it going to respect the idiosyncrasies of the various states participating? Sometimes, as you know, from licensing compacts, that means standing off the edges and agreeing we're going to try to, sync things up. Sometimes that amount to the lowest common denominator thing is just not compelled by its language. It's one of the reasons I think you can be comfortable with it. But decisions would have to be made there about what's the actual content of the agreement. Then the various state governors would have to decide, do I agree with this? After consultation with their agencies. So a lot of things have to happen. But again, here, the important thing I think from a risk perspective or future planning is, to us, big picture, it adds nimbleness and it does not force anybody's hand in a way they want to force.
yeah, there was no interest in that. It was just getting us prepped. And so the concern, the dark side, if we did nothing and this happened, is, can you just give us a brief picture of what the dark side would be?
It's not very dark, I don't think. It's, the risk is that a regional cannabis market gets going without us and our folks can't participate.
Or we all get, I think some of the concern is we would just be flooded by those who can produce more, faster, better, cheaper. And we'd have some of that obviously because you would have a more open market. But I also think there are a lot of concerns from our cannabis sector that they be totally outgunned.
Yes, I don't think that's a risk of this particular, that, things could happen in the federal judiciary or in the Congress that had that effect, but nothing about this particular bill would have that effect. This bill is more about allowing regional states with legal cannabis to cooperate.
Right.
and move forward with more.
And I think that our region has reasonable cannabis measures in place. So I'm excited about this, and I think we started to talk about this when the initial cannabis bill was being proposed, and we met at Ledge Council with the chair from the House, and we honed the bill down to where it was so that we could present it, because it was just so big that we had to be able to do that. And so we had Pepper and Matt, Asian meeting, and our Ledge Council. And then that's actually where we first started to talk about this. So I'm pleased to have it. And I think if you're okay with it, I'd love to have us all on it, if that's okay, as a committee amendment. And I'd love to have Pepper, the only addition I'd do is have Pepper draft an intent section. The other thing is I'd love to know the other 4 states that have done this. And now are the 4 that we're talking about in the West, or the 4 here in our region?
I think New Jersey is one, and I would have to ask Tucker to
Okay.
list of all. I recall seeing them and thinking, oh, good, those the states that generally have implemented.
No, I was impressed New Jersey was out ahead of us on this.
Yeah, they have really taken lead in some of this stuff, and the general back of it there.
Which is great. Okay, good.
All right, thank you so much. Just to
Yeah.
in general, I put past with the bill, so that pick up everything. But is it correct that states actually have to be contiguous to be able to participate in each other?
It appears to me that there's a provision whereby, with the assent of intermediate states,
That they're in.
but the language carefully avoids
Yeah.
compelling any intermediary state to allow the transit stuff that doesn't fall in.
But pivot states that are not contiguous don't have an agreement participating with another state that's in between it.
They don't have to be contiguous in this. They're not envisioned to be contiguous.
But again, here I'm so far out of my depth that I almost shouldn't have tried to answer your question because I might be
But we
wrong.
could-
I think it's an important question as to which states can deal with each other as participants in something.
That I do have that.
I mean, that's fairly critical.
It is,
How are you
but
gonna get it from A to B, if it has to pass through another state that's not?
well, that's why some of that is addressed in here, and Tucker can answer that more
As I say,
fully.
maybe it went through some bad, but I didn't pick up how it's addressed.
It's addressed,
If you're gonna put it on a truck to move it from state A to state B, and you have to go through state C to get there, is that a problem?
I think it's addressed on page 2, but Tucker would have to explain it more fully.
Off the cuff, I believe the short answer is it's a problem that state C says it is. But I should defer to Tucker.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we'll have
That's
Dr.
what I want to
Pepper.
really understand this better than I do right now.
me too. But I think it's a good start, and I think it gets at what we want to be doing, which is being prepared in case this should happen before next January. This gets us started and gets you started, more importantly,
Yes.
and gets the governor's antenna up on it as well, which is good. Gives him more to talk about at those governor's conferences. So, right. And do we have any notion is Tucker coming back to us, or is he now?
I think he did accidentally double vote to see some appropriations in the Senate there, so I don't think he will.
So House appropriations? Our appropriations is,
Senate appropriations, not Senate.
but Senate appropriations is meeting then.
I think he's in Senate Health and Welfare. They're going
Oh,
over
oh.
278
Yeah.
overview in Senate Health and Welfare.
Jay, thank you very much. This is great.
It was nice to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you. Okay, so we're gonna do this as a committee amendment. And Tucker answered some of the questions. Fees, every time we say foreign license, it means anything other than Vermont.
I know, it just
Everybody.
sounds so, I had no like real bone to pick there, it just sounded very
Right.
sinister something.
So, what I'd love to do now is just, I sent you the priority list for the housing and the economic development bill, just because we haven't had a chance to do that, and I would love to do that before I go to appropriations this afternoon. Thomas and Randy, I'm gonna defer to you to carry the water and finance for our bills.
But just send an email CCing you, Senator Brock, to incomings as well as the drafter. I'm planning to put forward, but I'd love to synchronize with you a lower fee. We're at $1,000 on the tobacco bill. But
So,
something that's
okay,
more-
so which bill are we talking
On
about?
the
Talking
tobacco.
about, should we start with that bill?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that's what you just said.
No, with all our bills.
Oh, okay.
So you specifically, let's chat about S-198.
So on the tobacco bill, I've been meaning to catch Senator Brock and what he thinks, but I've got multiple people in the hallways just raising a lot of concerns over the $1,000. I didn't sense this committee a great
That's
deal of
pretty high.
a ardent position on it, and so in that email. Is that why?
It's one of the two.
One of the two, all right, so. Hopefully this might get you to more comfortable. I'd love to explore the other one, which I think you told me about, but, the proposal, the email, I'll forward it to you as well. It just outlines what our neighboring states do and something much more reasonable that I'm sensing support for, somewhere between the $250 and $350 range, but I want to check with you and hear your thoughts.
The only question that I would have in this is, what's the purpose of cost increase? The purpose of cost increase to get additional revenue, or the purpose to equalize the actual cost, so that the cost reflects facts.
Yep.
And so that we're not subsidizing the tobacco industry, for example, by having fees that are unrealistically low. And I don't know the answer.
I think the other purpose is, just, if we were to do fees that approximated the cost of what tobacco costs this state, the fee would be $10,000. I mean, the tobacco costs the state hundreds of millions of dollars a
Well,
year in
this helps
healthcare
as a
costs. I
minimum.
mean,
I'm interested in the mechanical cost.
I know, I appreciate. So I'm just saying, I think that that a lot of the health advocates concerned here, it's also designed to be a thoughtful fee that reflects in part all the additional costs of the tobacco that tobacco's
And also that
impact
we don't
has on the
have
state.
a cost that is so low that encourages failure to do this the long way. Those encourage.
Well, it's zero at the moment, right?
It's combined, so arguably $110, but it's combined with alcohol and a $50 add-on with the
Right.
vapes.
Yeah, I
Regardless, the administration, the deputy commissioner, she's aware of this. I think she could speak to your point as to what would be a more reasonable
Right.
amount to cover the expenses of EXO.
And the other issue in finance, because that's the main issue in finance. What's the other issue in finance?
On tobacco, the other, I don't know if it's a finance issue. I've heard concerns raised, but I'm getting conflicting things on the position for enforcement. So that's more of an appropriation
Ah.
thing. So I don't think we're,
So
I'm fine.
you will take that up in approach, because I won't, yeah,
We're not on those.
But when I.
no, but because you're the reporter of the bill. As you'll recall, the governor vetoed the flavored tobacco piece because there was no enforcement. This was a response actually by the advocacy community to say, okay, no enforcement, we're putting enforcement in. And so that's what that is about. Just so you know. So I would hope, and I'm gonna hopefully have a chance to chat with Jason about it, before.
And still hear concerns about that position, but that's where I defer to approach.
It's a tough year for new positions. There's no question, but just to give you that,
Enforcement for positions that involve protection of public health or something like tobacco. They would be, folks would be more receptive to that than general increases, but it's gonna be
Right.
a real case made for it.
well, I think that Rosen made a strong case for the incredibly challenging internet world, which is what this position is for, is to enforce the online sales.
I don't want to drag you in with the other point. Do you want to raise that now? I know it's already passed out of committee, but do you want to go back through your concerns on that bill?
Yeah, so fees and penalties, the percent increases unreasonable. Second was the
The pop thing, the taking away the thing for kids, which would,
so removing all.
Consequence.
yeah, removing.
Consequence for kids making these decisions.
So, we'll have further conversations.
I won't portray that on the floor, but
I may follow up with a
Yeah,
comment, I'm not. Sure.
just like putting words in other people's mouths.
So while we're on finance, so just trying to think, the cannabis bill, as we think around, you've got fees.
We also got 328, I think, this afternoon, like,
Oh, are you guys doing 328?
well, it's not on the agenda, but I think it was directed to us.
So it
That's
is
your
directed,
priority.
I'm doing 328 and 327 in approps at 2:30. So, I'm,
I'm pretty sure it's out of finance first, but
it may be, but because I have to do one today, that's why we're doing it today. But, so, because we won't be there, I'm gonna rely on you guys to carry the water on 327 and 328 in terms of finance. 327, so should we look at the priorities, and because that'll tell us what's finance and what's pros. So let's start with, we have Chris in the room, so why don't we start with 328? I'm gonna give you back, I gave you, Thomas, I'm gonna give you back yours so that you can talk about yours in case you hear yours. So, we have, as far as so we're talking about housing, the priorities within our housing bill, and I would just, Andy has asked us to prioritize spending as is reasonable, and we had wanted to do that anyway. So, we have 6 pieces of financing, one of which is a tax credit. So, the others are just straightforward appropriations. So should we just go through and prioritize where people are with it? With each piece, what is your top priority in the housing bill spending, Dave?
Top is via.
Yeah, okay, 6.
me too.
Oh, DC and DW.
I think I looked over at Tom and we have like the just over it.
Okay, so Randy, where are you on your first priority?
Oh, we did.
Okay, and Keisha?
I love VHIP. I think number one, you can't get VHIP dollars out the door unless you have a position. They already get money. Like if you were just like, which programs do you like? I could put it at the top of the list. But what we're saying is this the best use of another $1 million right now? And I think they'll be able to draw down, what is like a sizable pot of money for VHIP right now that's given out in small enough chunks that it makes a big difference per unit, even if we don't find another $1 million for it, and everything else is a much easier one.
Right, so your first priority is?
My first priority is actually the changing the treasurer's credit facility, because that's like
That will add
net neutral.
That'll add, no, that's
Exactly.
$2.5
It's
billion.
like I looked at it from like a utilitarian perspective, I want to say, not just like what do I like.
That's why I put it lowest, because I figured sticky things left.
But also they don't,
It's very dry.
also all we have to do is authorize it. It's not
Exactly.
any money
It's not
out of
money.
our books. So given approach is making decisions of the, I mean, I think number 2 is kind of not really an approach priority.
But the problem is, approach has traditionally not been in favor of giving the treasurer more discretion over the monies that he is
Oversees.
able to, he oversees. So like, that's why I put it first.
Got it. I
It's
see.
easy money to say to them, please just do this. Like, we don't have any real money to throw at them.
Okay. So, I put my first choice is the down payment assistance program, which is so.
Yeah.
Okay. So TC, your second choice is number 1,
My second
Yeah.
choice is down payment.
down payment. Okay, got it. Keisha, you are also.
Yes.
KRH. That one. And, David,
Resilience fund. Regional planning. So
right, And Randy, what's your second priority?
Probably hit resilience.
Yeah, fine. My second choice is two. You and I are back and forth about the two. Third choice, Tom.
It previously was the really small money, 3,600, but my fourth choice.
I'm
was
not-
the
I'm not so worried about
resilience.
that.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about 3,600, so I don't just say the resilience.
Okay, David,
That's 40,000. 36.
service supported housing. Number three. Three for three. Is that right? Service supported housing.
Yes.
Great. And Randy, where does down payment assistance
Yeah,
tax credits fit for you guys? It's not. Okay. Okay. Oh, DW, that's your number four? Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Keisha, while Randy thinks, Keisha, what's your number three?
The 3,600.
For me? So Randy, what's your third choice?
resilience.
That was your.
Oh. Yeah, that's right.
That was your second choice.
Ah, I'm paying assistance.
What do you think about it? David, you already said your fourth priority is, the down payment assistance.
Yes.
And Tom, what's your fourth?
Go with the service supported housing for kids.
Okay, right. And, Keisha, what's your fourth?
DHC.
The positions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, me too. And Randy, do you have a third and fourth choice yet?
Inclined for it, my third was second resilience.
You think about it for a second. We can finish up. Tom, what is your fifth choice?
DHCD positions.
Okay, and David,
For the game tax credits. If you're ready for fifth,
yeah, I'm ready for the fifth.
treasurer's credit.
Two. Okay, great. And Keisha, what's your fifth?
So my fifth was the municipal and regional grants, not because I think they're unimportant, but maybe Tom's logic for one of the other ones. I think there's an existing resource that wouldn't be that hard to modify to give them that money. It's not new money.
Right. Right.
So maybe that's a higher priority that should happen.
Okay. And last, Thomas
Treasurer's credit facility.
and David.
Positions. And I'll give you my perspective there then.
Yeah.
Perspective from a business lens is we never create new positions until it's proven that all the positions that they already have in this particular project organization being well utilized. Never give new positions. Anyway, that's just a perspective and that's my first reaction.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the challenge we face, as you know, is they won't talk about these once the budget's being presented. So these were from these were in their bill, in the administration's bill.
I have learned enough around here to understand that if you really want to make a point, you can edge around the topic, come back at it from a different direction, make your point. In this case, if they said well, we did due diligence and we can simply not maintain the level of service for these programs. With our current manning.
Right. No,
They do.
thank you. I appreciate it. Keisha, what's your sixth choice?
It's VHIP because 3 million feels like the right amount right now with all of these competing.
They have 4 million in the base. Already.
Oh, I was probably confusing it with something from the economic thing, but yeah, 4 million feels good enough when 1 million is a big round number. And I think it's hard to tell the appropriations committee.
Right.
Just come up with another million for this.
Right. Okay. Randy, when you have time, we'll just fill you in on what your third, fourth, fifth, and sixth choices are. Great. Thank you. I know I'm not very good at grids and charts, but I thought this was at least workable. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful for housing. And then economic development. I gave you all the similar sheet and I'm giving you back, which you guys who were so bloody good at this on the floor. I mean, you just whizzed it out here. Chittenden, that goes to you. And okay, sure, this goes to you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I just thought, the floor was a good time to work on it. Oh, may I just say, thank you for your words on CTE. What was critically important about CTE is that we get the House bill because they did not get permission to do more an extra week. So when Tanya asked very good questions about what does it cost, she asked about career and technical education. Look, Seth very kindly moved this bill basically as it was drafted, as intent, just to get a Senate CTE bill to them because they are really doing the heavy lift here of going through what the administration has proposed. And so thank you to education for passing that out in that best. Okay, so let's look at, I'm just gonna run through the same thing, if that's okay. Okay, so just gonna, what did I just do with my brain? Okay, well, anyway. Okay, so economic development. And I apologize, but I'm gonna ask Tom and Randy to carry the weight for both economic development and housing and finance on those two big sections, which were really helpful. I have language for you on the downtown and village tax credit stuff if you want. Okay, so how about we just go through the same order we went through? Beginning with Tom, David, Randy, and KRH and AHC.
Number one,
And-
downtown.
Yeah,
village.
what is your number one? Number one is number one. Okay, David, what's your number one?
Same.
I guess same for me too. And Randy, what's your number one? And Keisha,
Small bids.
all of.
Oh, were we supposed to?
I was breaking them out, but if you want to do small, and I think that's a great way of looking at them.
I think it looks like you have two groups, only two groups. I'm not sure we have that. I saw this old matrix.
Oh, I gave you on the floor this.
No.
This is what I was.
Oh, I thought this was another copy of what, Senator Ron Hinsdale
Oh,
passed out,
copy,
so
I
it
mean.
did stick.
It was, I worked for David. I worked off of this.
Give me
And
one
I
second,
did it.
I'll catch up.
I did it as they were in, no, I'm sorry, didn't you get a sheet?
I did, but I thought it was the same one, so I thought,
Oh, got it. But that's okay, it's because you're still your first choice. It sounds like your first priority is
Yes,
still
it is.
downtown village tax credits. And Keisha,
You've got a sheet with that list on it, correct? And I'm just wondering.
I gave
don't
it to
see
you on
that
the floor.
On the floor, when?
I had both these sheets at your desk with a note to you.
Okay.
Just today.
no, Paige gave it to me.
It was sitting, no, I had her put it right on your desk.
I didn't see it. I haven't seen anything today. On the.
Oh, I gave you both these sheets. Okay. okay, give me 2 secs. Let me go print it out. That was on your desk. So, I think, Pam, I saw you come in. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten you. You're right behind me. If you just print out, hold on one sec, Mike. I'm not very good at doing 2 things at once. Let's do both things for Randy. If you could, print out, this for Randy and, yeah, and then they'll be in the Ledge Lounge. I'm just gonna print both of them freaking right now. And sorry, they were on your desk, so I don't know what happened.
I don't know. I was just.
I can't believe. Okay. You kind of just go and get first here, and that would be really kind of you. And then I will send those to you, so you. But Randy, they're in the Ledge Lounge printer. Yeah, they were at your desk. Okay. I have this already. Apologies, we are. Great. So this is what I had given to a page to put on your desk. So it's prioritizing, well, that really bothers me. Anyway, there we are. So you're gonna play a little bit of catch up here. And Thomas, I'll print out this additional work I've got for you. So we're all, if that's okay, we're all set. I don't driving me nuts. That's okay. So let's let Randy catch up. And David, you okay to start this? Okay, great. So I think Acacia, do you want to just say that support all four of those small business supports?
Maybe I thought I was like getting a lot of bang for my buck.
You are, but I appreciate you getting bang for your buck. I'd love to make that
I think that's what makes it an economic development bill.
I agree. Okay, I'm putting down 2. The whole thing is your number 1.
Okay.
That's my number 2. So there we are. Thomas, what's your number 2?
Brownfields,
Great. David?
boring.
Randy?
My number 1 and my number 2
So your number 1,
is increasing downtown.
Yeah.
Tax rates.
is that number 1?
That's number 1.
Okay.
Brownfields, is number 2.
Okay. Hold on, and we'll get to number, we'll get to Keisha, what is your number 2?
Voren, I was convinced by Senator Weeks' passion.
Man, I love Senator Bean's passion on this one. I want to see him on a bike. That's really what I want to see. On mountain bike.
Out by snowmobile,
Scuba diving, actually, I really want to see you.
snorkeling.
I want to go scuba diving with you.
Canoeing,
Got
Got it. Okay, Thomas, your third priority.
I similarly was impressed by the passionate speed by Senator Weeks, and I have Borat as well.
Okay, great. David, what is your number 3?
Brownfield.
Randy, what's your number 3?
All right.
You have that as your second.
Second. All right.
Okay,
Just
you have
brownfields.
brownfields? Okay, great, good, thank you. And, so number, 3 is your
That's all right.
third choice, okay, 3 for 3. Keisha?
I said Montreal because I felt bad that I did want to give them $700.
No, that's for Taiwan, but
But
The
I
language
want
is
them
still-
to feel good about
Yeah.
Montreal money. 'Cause that
got
feels really
it,
good
got
for
it,
them.
got it. And fourth choice, fourth priority, Tom.
Where is that resources for small business?
David,
International trade, Montreal.
Randy? Your fourth priority?
Choice is supporting small business with the exception of item D.
Okay.
They're not supporting the increase.
Keisha?
I went with the downtown and village center tax credit for the amount of money I was thinking about in the other bill that I just don't think there's an extra $1 million laying around anywhere. So 3 million is better than getting cut right now.
Well, there's that. There is that. Okay, and, fifth, Thomas, your fifth,
Montreal office.
okay, and, David,
Small business.
Randy,
It's Montreal office.
okay, and Keisha, your fifth,
Brownfields, because you can't find 1 million.
And there's a footnote, so I think on all of these, are various decisions. For example,
Yeah.
I put at number 5, the Montreal office, which I think would be a great idea, but when you have administration doesn't want it, I hate to give people something they don't want.
They want Montreal, they don't want Taiwan, so I got the
Well,
75K knocked off.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I thought they
think in
wanted the
addition to the Montreal office money in
No.
order to pay for Taiwan.
in here, we'll show you that it's in the governor's recommend.
That's fine then. That's fine. In fact, I probably would have moved up, knowing that.
So what we have language in the bill is it continues to support the Montreal office and it supports their doing the work to,
In time.
To develop the relationships with Taiwan.
That I absolutely support that.
I think it was premature to probably do the Taiwan. Yeah, okay, I got that. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. That was really helpful. I hate to ask because they're all our babies and, but you know, all these 4 bills. But if well, it's not gonna ask. I think we have to, I think they're apples and oranges.
What do you want us to reflect? You don't have
Well,
to,
so Andy said to me, well, so what are your priorities in the bills? I said, well, they're all important or we wouldn't have spent so much time on them. And they're all different. So I don't feel like we should be prioritizing the bills, but if we want to, we could do that. It makes me feel a little, because they're so different. I mean, the cannabis, he wants, is the housing bill your most important bill or is the economic development bill or is the vaping bill or is the cannabis bill? So I'm happy to entertain which bill is your top priority, but I also think they're so different. It's very hard to.
Who wanted that?
Andy did.
Oh,
I said,
okay.
you're not just going to give us one thing. You're going to give us pieces in each one. So I just don't feel as comfortable.
Oh, but only on the money, not on like the,
No,
yeah, they're under extreme pressure, so
no,
I understand his.
Well, I absolutely understand that. I mean, certainly in corporate, one of the things that I always did with the budget is I've listed all the line items for that, but for subject matter, things that we had to do in order of importance, and then drew a line when I ran out of money. And I think that's what he's trying to do, and that's not an unreasonable thing to do.
especially since the subject matter expertise theoretically sits here for this particular topic and
That-
every room is different.
Okay. So I'm happy to give this to you. I just gave you an out if you didn't want to do it. So Thomas, of the 4 bills that we are looking at, the vaping bill, let's just call it, economic development, housing, and cannabis.
I have no
Thomas,
favorite
what
children.
is your,
What are we doing right now?
we're prioritizing?
Come
I'm
on.
asking each one of you, if you had to go, which was of those 4 bills, which were your first, second, third, fourth, all our other bills have been.
I don't even know how much money.
I'm choosing to not answer because I have no favorite children.
Thank you. That's what I said to Andy.
Okay, so we could have a discussion about it and then you could take that discussion to Andy.
I'm happy to.
But I guess it's hard, like, I don't know that it could be like 1, 2, 3, 4.
And they're not gonna make decisions that way.
Yeah.
They're gonna make decisions within each bill, you know. So to me, it's irrelevant how we prioritize the bills. They're gonna make decisions on the money pieces of each one of the bills.
I think
So I'm not,
at some point it would help to know whether it's like informally done or during committee time, you know, where they're really struggling, where if they have a certain amount of money left and they're thinking like, who really needs this or something.
so I guess the other thing I would say is we have been given all these jurisdictions. The vaping bill is my number 1 consumer protection bill. The housing bill is my number 1 housing priority.
Right.
The cannabis bill is my number 1 cannabis.
Right.
I mean, so we have,
you know, when we originally fought for VHIP before it was base budgeted, the thought was we care about housing and this is the most number of units we could get for the investment. So I still think we could have some principles like, we want children to be safe.
we want children to be safe in housing where cannabis is not readily
Right.
accessible and where their parents' businesses have been well
Well,
resourced.
or
and
we
well-financed.
saw this as the best return on investment
Yeah,
based on a certain metric.
and there's a different lens. You're absolutely right. There's those lenses for each one of these. But I would say for the jurisdictions that we are charged with prioritizing, I don't have a priority on any of those jurisdictions. They're all important, is what I tried to say.
I'll offer one. Okay,
Go for it.
economic development.
Okay.
Absolutely number 1. It's the problem. It's the problem that plagues the state. Everything else is a symptom.
Yeah.
Even housing is a symptom of the economic problem. That's why I would put that up. And I'm happy to,
And then when you got into a discussion after that, and really wanted to carry it to its logical extension, then you say, what's the most important thing in economic development? Where should the emphasis?
Well, and we've done
be?
that.
And in a way, what you're doing is you're taking a bunch of disparate things and you're putting them in a list of priorities.
Exactly.
I will say this. The cannabis industry has proven itself as an absolute pillar of the rural economy. And so to me, that's our rural economic development bill at this time.
Yes.
yeah, but rural economic development compared to the urban economic development, I think pales in comparison.
Well, this
Thank
one
you.
connects all of them. So to me, it's an economic development bill that shows.
Not trying to push back in
It's the
cannabis, I
return on
get it,
investment.
it's craft market, okay, let's go. I think you got all the right tools in place, but there are bigger fish that.
Well, to that end, I agree a large extent to Senator Weeks that I want to contract, I want to support the small businesses, cannabis and farmers and all that, but I also, as a Vermonter, I want to see the big businesses come there too, the growth of medium-sized, and I think what we do with veggie is going to help that. I would love to see the next IBM come to Vermont and build a new plant and facility and create those types of jobs for the next generation of Vermonters. So that's why I'm very much on the same page as the governor, is I think we need more taxes from more taxpayers, and I think that will happen more economic growth and get back to the permitting and regulatory space. But we did do something good with veggie, so that's in the bill, and I think that's an important tool to help our businesses grow.
Yeah.
And attract other businesses.
So would economic development be your first priority?
And housing. I don't know if I put
Mhm.
economic development above housing. I feel like housing is very important to me at a variety of fronts, but economic development's right up there too.
Okay.
we cannot attract people to the state without housing.
But this is why I think they're all the top priority in their jurisdictional
But this is
area.
the hard, We have to do this.
Yeah, exactly,
I get it.
exactly.
So what's your number
Good.
two?
It's good to have this conversation.
It is, but we
How's-
want you all to know that they're all our children and we care enormously about all of them.
Who are you talking to right now?
I'm talking to the public,
Tuning in.
to the people who are watching.
Oh, it's the finance too, because we can't develop it without a finance policy that makes sense. And the rob the rich policy is not making sense. If it chases away the economic development that we're seeking for the developers.
So you asked a question.
So David, I asked you,
How's-
how's it going? Randy, what is your top priority and what's your second?
And my second is housing.
And, Keisha, I think I've got cannabis and what's your second?
Housing.
And, Thomas, what's your third?
So I feel like this exercise is only gonna cause grief. So I'll just caveat again, I have no favorites. And consumer protections are incredibly important. I'm just saying a lot of those spaces, I like to stay consistent with the regional neighbors and also yield to a lot of the federal government, federal government's role in providing synergies across our state boundaries.
So S 198? Sure. Okay. David, what's your second, third?
Small craft cannabis.
Okay, Randy, what's your third?
So,
Okay. And Keisha, what's your third?
Tobacco.
Okay, and last but not least, Thomas, cannabis. Weed,
Not against
David-
it, I just. don't really
David
care.
Weed, David Weeds, oh, so sorry, David.
that's lowest.
And Randy, what's your last? Cannabis? That's the last but least, not least. And Keisha, your last is
Economic development.
cannabis.
That one
and-
could come back in a campaign at some point.
That's why this exercise. They're all
Okay.
my favorite children.
They were all economic development too. That's
They're all economic development,
Yeah.
every one of them. So that's why. Yes, great. That gives us, I think that is very helpful. Thank you. We go offline, I think, we have, we're gonna have